Welcome to Psycast. Today, I want to talk to you about something quiet, but loud inside of us. What if the reason we feel so restless isn't because of what's missing, but because of what we've been carrying for too long? There's a kind of presence that doesn't need to speak loudly to be heard, a kind of energy that draws people in, not by demanding attention, but by offering something deeper, a sense of being seen, understood, and safe. We often call it charisma. But what if it's more than just charm or confidence? What if it's a social skill, one that Plato understood centuries ago, that makes people feel loved, not just impressed? Maybe you've met someone like that. They enter a room and suddenly the air shifts. Not because they're the loudest or the most beautiful, but because they're fully there, present, attuned. You feel it in the way they look at you, listen to you, respond to you. It's not about performance. It's about connection. And yet, so many of us chase the wrong version of this. We think charisma means being entertaining, witty, always on. We try to be magnetic by being impressive. But true magnetism isn't about pulling people toward your spotlight. It's about making them feel like they belong in it. Let me tell you something I once heard. People will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. That's not just a quote. It's a blueprint for real connection. And it's what Plato hinted at when he spoke of the soul's longing for harmony, for resonance, for truth. In his dialogues, Plato often explored the idea that the soul recognizes beauty not just in form, but in essence. That we're drawn to what feels authentic, congruent, whole. He believed that the highest form of love, what he called agape, wasn't about possession, but about seeing and being seen in truth. That kind of love, that kind of presence, is magnetic. So, what does this mean for us? It means that the most powerful social skill isn't about saying the right thing, but about being the right presence. It's about cultivating inner stillness so we can truly listen. It's about healing our own wounds so we don't project them onto others. It's about being so rooted in who we are that others feel safe to be who they are. Think about the people you're drawn to. Chances are, it's not because they're perfect, but because they're real. They don't hide behind masks. They don't need to dominate the conversation. They make space for silence, for emotion, for you. And here's the paradox. The more we try to be charismatic, the less we are. Because charisma isn't something you do. It's something you allow. It emerges when you stop performing and start connecting, when you stop trying to be interesting and start being interested. So if you've been chasing approval, trying to impress, or feeling like you're not enough, maybe it's time to stop, to breathe, to come home to yourself, because the most magnetic energy you can offer is your authentic presence. And that, more than any clever line or polished image, is what makes people feel loved. But here's the hard part. Being present isn't always easy, especially if life has taught you that it's not safe to be fully seen. If you've been dismissed, misunderstood, or made to feel like your softness is a weakness, then of course you'd learn to protect yourself, to shrink, to perform, to hide behind certainty or noise. Presence asks for vulnerability. And vulnerability requires trust, not just in others, but in yourself, in your own enoughness, your own quiet worth. That's why some people feel magnetic without saying much. It's not because they have nothing to prove. It's because they've stopped trying to prove anything at all. You can feel it in their eyes. They're not looking through you or past you. They're with you. And that's rare, because in a world addicted to image and speed, true presence has become almost radical. But it's not performative. It's not about stillness for the sake of aesthetics. It's about a deeper kind of awareness, the kind that says, I see you, I hear you, I'm here with you. And when someone gives you that kind of attention, it heals something ancient in you. It reminds you that you matter, not for what you do, but for who you are. Plato once wrote that love is the name we give to our recognition of the divine in another. Think about that for a moment. To love someone, even in a fleeting social moment, is to notice the part of them that is whole, eternal, human. That's the essence of charisma. It's love in motion. Not romantic love, but the kind that sees, reflects, connects. And you don't need to be loud or funny or beautiful to offer that. You just need to be honest, to be present, to be willing to meet another person where they are, even if it's uncomfortable, especially if it's uncomfortable. Because real connection often begins in the quiet places, in the pauses, in the moments when someone says something raw and you don't rush to fix it. You just sit there with them in it. That kind of space is sacred and rare. We're not taught to value this. We're taught to perform, to impress, to dominate conversations with stories or facts or opinions. But charisma doesn't live in your mouth. It lives in your nervous system, in your ability to stay grounded, open, aware. There's a concept in psychology called co-regulation. It means that our nervous systems can calm each other down. When you're with someone who feels safe, your body feels it before your brain does. Your shoulders drop, your breath deepens, your guard softens. That's why certain people feel so good to be around. Not because they say the perfect thing, but because their presence tells your body, you're safe here. That's the social skill no one teaches us, but that Plato, in his own way, pointed toward. That magnetic energy isn't about manipulation. It's about resonance, about showing up so fully in yourself that others feel permission to show up too. And here's the most beautiful part. You don't have to be healed to offer this. You just have to be honest about where you are. Because presence isn't about perfection. It's about alignment. When who you are on the outside reflects who you are inside, people feel it, and they trust it, even if they can't explain why. So maybe the question isn't, how can I be more charismatic? Maybe the real question is, what parts of me am I still hiding, performing, or abandoning in order to be liked? Because the moment you stop abandoning yourself, people will start feeling drawn to you, not for your performance, but for your presence. It's strange how we chase connection by pretending to be what we think others want. We shapeshift, overthink, walk on emotional eggshells, all in the name of being liked. But what we really want isn't admiration, it's closeness. And those two don't always live in the same room. People might admire your success, your charm, your confidence, but they only feel close to your humanity, your flaws, your fears, your unguarded moments. That's where real connection begins. Not when you impress someone, but when you reveal something true. And I get it. That's terrifying. Because what if you show someone who you really are, and they walk away? That fear is ancient. It's the echo of all the times love felt conditional. When being real came with a cost. When silence felt safer than honesty. But here's the paradox. The more you hide, the lonelier it gets. You might be surrounded by people, but if none of them really know you, not the curated version, but the honest one, then their love can't reach the parts of you that need it most. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And yet, how many of us spend our lives becoming who we think we're supposed to be? We wear masks of competence, humor, productivity. We use our charisma like armor. And yes, it can work. It can get us attention, approval, applause. But it doesn't get us intimacy, because intimacy requires exposure, not of your body, but of your truth. So what if we flipped the script? What if instead of trying to be impressive, we tried to be honest? What if instead of trying to win people over, we learned to stay rooted in ourselves and let connection come from that place? Because here's the quiet secret. Your realness is what people fall in love with. Not your highlight reel, not your quick wit, but the moment your voice cracks a little when you talk about what matters to you, the moment you admit you don't have it all figured out, the moment you stay, even when it's uncomfortable, because someone else needs you to. That's magnetic. Not in a flashy, show-stopping way, but in a soul-level way, the kind of energy that makes people feel seen, safe, soothed. And the good news, you don't have to earn that energy. You already have it, underneath the fear, beneath the roles you've learned to play. It's the part of you that still hopes, still aches, still longs to be met, not with applause, but with presence. Presence is what makes love possible. And not just romantic love, but all love. The love between friends who sit in silence without needing to fill it. The love between colleagues who ask, "How are you?" and mean it. The love between strangers who share a glance and in that moment feel the same unspoken thing. So if you've been trying too hard, maybe it's time to stop. If you've been over-explaining, over-apologizing, over-performing, maybe it's time to breathe, to soften, to listen. Because the people who make us feel most alive are rarely the ones who impress us. They're the ones who remind us of ourselves, of what's real, of what matters. They give us the courage to show up, not as who we should be, but as who we are. And that's the kind of charisma the world needs more of. Not the kind that dazzles, but the kind that welcomes, that holds space, that reflects back the beauty in others without needing to steal the light. I think about this a lot, how deeply we crave to be mirrored, to be looked at with soft eyes and heard without correction. That's what charisma at its core really is, not the ability to be seen, but the ability to see. And not just see what's visible, but what's hidden, what's quiet, what's tender and true in another human being. That's why certain people feel unforgettable. Because in their presence, you remember something about yourself, something you forgot you needed. Not praise, not validation, but recognition. That moment when someone doesn't try to fix you or fill the silence. They just sit with you, fully. There's a quote I love from Henri Nouwen. He said, "When we honestly ask ourselves, which person in our lives means the most to us, we often find that it is those who, instead of giving advice or solutions, have chosen rather to share our pain and touch our wounds with a warm and tender hand." That's the social skill no one teaches in school. The ability to sit with another person in their humanity, without judgment, without impatience. That's what Plato meant in his own way when he talked about the soul recognizing truth and beauty in another. Real connection isn't about always knowing what to say. It's about being brave enough to stay when the other person can't find the words themselves. Because let's be honest, life is heavy sometimes. We all carry things we can't name. And most of us walk through the world afraid of burdening others with our mess. But when someone shows you they can handle your truth, that they won't flinch or flee or change the subject, something inside you exhales. That's the root of charisma, emotional capacity, the ability to stay open, even when it's messy, to not need to control the moment, but to be in it, fully, humbly, honestly. And you don't need years of therapy or books or practice to do this. You just need willingness, a willingness to feel, to witness, to be real. It might sound small, but it's everything. When you stop trying to manage how you're perceived and start showing up with intention and presence, everything changes. Not because you suddenly become more interesting, but because people finally feel your sincerity. And sincerity is magnetic. It doesn't sparkle, but it glows. It's not polished, but it's deep. It doesn't make people say, "Wow." It makes them say, "I feel safe here." That's why charisma, at its most profound level, isn't about you. It's about what you create in others. It's about how people feel in your presence. And the people who master this aren't usually the loudest. They're the ones who've done the quiet work of becoming okay with themselves. Not perfect, not healed, but honest. So if you're still wondering how to become more charismatic, maybe the answer isn't in learning more tricks, or changing your posture, or memorizing better stories. Maybe the answer is simpler and harder. Maybe it's about dropping the act, letting the mask slip, letting someone see you, really see you, and staying long enough to see them too. Because that kind of presence, the kind that doesn't need to perform, is rare, and it's holy. And when you offer it, even briefly, it stays with people, long after the conversation ends. We spend so much time learning how to speak, but so little time learning how to listen. Not just to others, but to ourselves, to the small, steady voice beneath the noise. The one that doesn't shout for attention, but whispers the truth. That voice, if you really hear it, will tell you this: you don't have to try so hard. You don't have to perform to be loved. You don't have to carry every conversation or light up every room. Your presence is enough, if you let it be honest. There's a beauty in people who've made peace with who they are. You feel it when you're around them. They don't need to dominate the space. They create space. They don't seek to be understood before they've understood you. They're not in a hurry to fill the silence, because they've learned the silence often speaks more clearly than words. And when you become one of those people, something shifts. You stop chasing attention, because connection means more. You stop fearing awkwardness, because authenticity matters more. You stop trying to be chosen, because you realize you were never unworthy to begin with. In a way, this is the heart of Plato's wisdom. He believed the soul longs for what is real, not just in beauty or knowledge or love, but in each other. He spoke of relationships as mirrors through which the soul comes to know itself. That's the invisible thread running through every moment of real connection, a glimpse of the divine in another, and the quiet hope that they might see it in you too. So, here's the invitation. Don't aim to be charismatic. Aim to be whole, to be true, to be the kind of presence that doesn't try to impress, but to witness, to sit in the fire of realness, both yours and theirs, and not flinch. You'll be surprised what happens when you do. You'll begin to notice people open up around you. They'll soften, share more, trust more. Not because you're dazzling them, but because they feel something rare, emotional safety. And in that safety, something sacred unfolds, a kind of resonance that can't be faked. You don't have to fix people. You don't have to know what to say all the time. You just have to stay. Stay curious. Stay present. Stay kind. That's charisma. That's power. That's love. Not as an idea, but as a way of being. Because in the end, people may not remember the exact words you said, but they'll remember the feeling of being around you, the way their shoulders dropped, the way they felt seen, the way, maybe for the first time in a long time, they felt like they didn't have to pretend. And that, more than charm, more than eloquence, more than strategy, is what makes everyone love you. Not because you were perfect, but because you were real. So let this be the reminder you didn't know you needed. Your presence is your gift. Your honesty is your light. Your stillness is your strength. Don't waste it trying to be someone else's idea of magnetic. Become your own.